And a warm welcome to the ODPP Café. We are glad that you found time to join us this morning. This is a show brought to you by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and the show is meant to inform and educate you about how the criminal justice system works, especially from the perspective of the ODPP. My name is Anita, and I'll be your host for today. Please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know if you have any question in the comment sections on our Twitter page, on Facebook, and on YouTube. We are live. Our Facebook page is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. YouTube as well, Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. And we welcome you to subscribe. On Twitter, we are at ODPP_KE. We welcome you to also follow us and also engage with us on the topic for today. As always, we start the show with a quick sneak into the courts. And like I say, it's not everything, it's not exhaustive. It is what's just a few cases we've picked from the courts. And I'll start with the case of the, just give me a sec, of the principal of Kiru Boys. If you watched the news yesterday, a High Court in Nakuru sentenced Jane Muthoni, the former Ishashiri Girls Secondary School principal, and her co-accused Isaac Nganga to 30 years in prison each for the murder of her husband, the former Kiru Boys principal Solomon Mbuthi. Jane was found guilty of this murder that took place in 2016. It was one of those cases that gripped the country because of how it was done. Justice Joel Gugi handed Jane Muthoni the sentence, saying she severally planned the murder, not once, of Solomon Mwangi, so she did it severally. Investigations led by Police Inspector Clement Mwangi further showed Muthoni received text messages from Karaoke, who was at the crime scene on the fateful day. Karaoke is a co-accused. Karaoke was, however, sentenced to serve as jail term of 7 years after pleading guilty to manslaughter and consequently accepting to be a state witness in this killing. We talked about manslaughter before. We talked about plea bargain, and I think this is one of those cases that actually shows how this works. So she is going to jail for 30 years. And of course, she has the right to appeal. And she's been given the time to appeal for this case. The other case, again, that gripped the nation sometime last week was about the school bus conductor charged with defilement. A man is accused of defiling a 5-year-old girl who was in the school bus. He was the conductor of the school bus of Mary Joy Kindergarten. The prosecution submitted that the guy defiled the girl while she was on her way home on May 18th. So Elijah who denied the charges, was freed on 100,000 cash bail or an alternative 300,000 bond with similar surety. We've again talked about bail and bond on this show, and this is what has happened. He still will respond to these charges in as much as he's been given or granted bail and bond. The other case we have is of a 15-year-old boy in court, 15-year-old boy in court, who I think had the guts with his friends, other teenagers. They robbed a police at gunpoint. So they were arraigned in court for robbing a police officer attached to Kiambaa police station of a mobile phone at gunpoint. You can imagine the guts these boys have. So the prosecution submitted that on May 14, 2021 at Makina, the 5 were armed and had dangerous weapons. They robbed Pius Ekai, an officer attached at Kiambaa, of a mobile phone valued at 17,000. They pleaded not guilty to the charges, and the court ordered them to be detained until June 14, when the probation report will be produced in court. We talked about this as well, how probation works. And of course, these ones have been given a chance. The probation officer has to submit a report to the court to show to just advise the court on how to go forward with bail and bond. These are teenagers as well. So we talked about children and the law, juvenile justice, and I believe this will apply in this case. But I can't believe their guts. They actually decided to rob a cop at gunpoint. The other case today we are looking at is about 3 NGO directors who have been charged with supply fraud. The 3 directors were accused of defrauding a company of 200 tanks worth 2 million, and they are in court. They are in police custody, for the next 7 days. Peter Githai, Florence Karaoke, and Mohammed Adil are said to have locked up their offices at Westlands, Nairobi after receiving water tanks from Supertank Limited. Then they disappeared without paying. So they received 200 tanks, did not pay for it, and decided to close down their office. But the law caught up with them, and they are to respond to these charges. So while applying for the detention of the three directors, State Prosecutor James Geshoka said the police were yet to establish whether the organization is registered with the board of NGOs and needed more time to finish the investigations. Remember, they can ask for this always, should they need more time to investigate. So that is what we've had, a quick roundup of the courts. Remember, we just pick a few cases, not all. A lot goes on in the courts, and this is just a few of the cases we've picked up for you. Engage and follow us, like I said, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We are ready and interested in engaging with you, especially on the topics that we have been posting on our social media channels. So if you've been following us on social media, this week and last week we've been speaking about SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence. And last week we had our guests, two experts speaking on the same. This week, again, we continue with the same topic because this topic is quite wide. We can't claim to totally exhaust it, but we will attempt to discuss it further this week. We had two guests. We have one from the ODPP, and I'm going to introduce her in a few minutes. The other guest, unfortunately, has been unable to make it because of unavoidable circumstances. She's Ms. Kula Roba Wako, the National Coordinator from Equality Effect. This is an NGO that deals with human rights for girls and women in Africa. So because of unavoidable circumstances, she was not able to join with us, but I know they are following the discussion today. So Karibu Sana, I will go straight into introducing my guest, and I'll allow her to introduce herself so that we can get on with the discussion. Karibu, Madam Jackie.
Thank you very much, Anita, for inviting me to the ODPP Café. My name is Jacqueline Jaggi. From the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the head of Sgbv Division and Victims Support Unit. I joined ODPP in 2016, though I have experience in gender and human rights issues spanning to over 20 years.
Wow.
Thank you.
So today we have the expert of experts, the head of the division.
Not really.
So we've had this discussion and it's been quite interesting and engaging. Last week we had Madam Jacinta Nyamosi and Mr. Donex Ongira, and they actually did a very good job trying to educate us on what SGBV means, the definition and the context in which SGBV applies. And we had some very interesting discussions about marital rape, about consent, and these are discussions that are definitely ongoing. So we hope to continue with the discussions today. And remember, this show is just about educating and informing people. So we are really ready to learn. It's a classroom of some sorts. So we really, last time as we were discussing SGBV, we didn't really discuss the kind of environment that fosters or encourages SGBV because it just doesn't happen. There are those signs that show that this is an environment that SGBV may happen. Well, you cannot predict all, but how would you describe an environment that fosters SGBV?
I think I would like to answer that question by looking at also the causes.
Yes.
One of the points that you can look at to see that an environment is pointing to GBV is actually what we call socialization, as the social environment. How people are socialized right from the beginning. If you look at our society, a boy is socialized to believe the what we call the superior members of the society, as opposed to girl, how they are received in this society from birth. When a girl is born, we know there are some communities that you will notify the whole community. This is a girl who's been born into a family by ululating 3 times, yes, while for a boy, it's 5 times. So it starts early for a boy believing that they're always superior to the girl child. Issues of the economy, the economic setting. Kids are socialized early that a woman should stay at home and cater for the kids, yes, while the man should leave the house and go and work. So it's all about socialization right from the beginning.
But that has changed, right? Economic settings have changed. Boys, is it the man no longer goes to hunt alone? They go hunting with the woman?
Yes, to some extent it has changed.
Yeah.
But remember, we also have those communities that are still socializing their kids to believe that the boy should ultimately be the one who goes out to fend for the family. And now we are seeing a change where women are also taking up the role of leading a family. So yes, to some extent it has changed, and no, in some communities it
continues.
It continues.
And maybe again because we are a patriarchal society, in as much as a woman goes out to hunt sometimes, it could foster a space, an environment of violence, because now the man thinks they've been emasculated.
Yes.
I don't know the word.
Yes.
Yes. So one of those is just those environments that foster and or encourages SGBV. And culture as well, like you're talking about, one of the causes as well. I was watching Citizen yesterday, and some two girls talked about how their father continuously assaulted them and actually raped them. So I'm imagining also that culture, we are brought up to be respectful, to not raise a voice against the especially your father. You know, you do what he says. And I think it's also one of those environments that fosters SGBV.
Yes, and women have also been socialized to keep quiet, to be that meek person. You know, you only talk when you should talk. Initially, you only talk when you should talk, and you're there to be seen and not to be
To
heard.
be heard.
Yes.
So then how do we get men into this conversation?
I've seen a change of late where we start the conversation with our children early, telling them personally telling them that you need to embrace your sister as an equal child to the boy child, so that they learn right from the beginning, this is a sister and not a lesser being compared to them. So when you start early as a parent, you end up having kids who are balanced. You end up having adults who are very balanced, knowing that a woman can equally contribute to the family as the man can do. Yes.
Okay. I think Madame Nyamos is the one who talked about it last time when she talked about FGM. And she said the success achieved in KC to date has been because the men took part in the conversation. So I think what you're saying is very important. And it matters, the small things that we do in the house, even chores, right? So there's no chore for the boy, there's no chore for the girl. We are all equal. But is that achievable in an African setting?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
It's progressive. It's
Yeah.
not something that we're expecting to achieve in the next 10 or 15 years. So it's something when you start with your kids early, when you start with the community early, when you start with your workmates early, it means then it will be achievable. I mean, maybe a Vision 20, we should look, when we're evaluating the SDGs, we should also be looking at how far we've gone in socializing and trying to change the community, and especially the boy, to work together. I attribute at times what is happening now to what we did when we were empowering the girl child.
Yes.
We left behind the boy child.
Yes.
Then this boy child was left in an environment where they are very confused. They didn't know whether to look up to their mothers and fathers, but they just followed. You know, we are now at that point in life where we now need to bring the boy to the same level with the girl. So we should be seeing a lot of boy child empowerment just to bring them to the same level.
Yeah. So as we speak about the environment as well, COVID has brought out this SGBV. I mean, COVID has exposed the society so bad. There are divorces now, there are so many separations, and then of course cases of violence. So what have you seen in this time?
I think if you look at where we were at before March 2020 and where we are at, and especially that period towards the end of last year, when the government set up mechanisms so that we could control COVID-19, which is called the pandemic.
Yeah.
We ended up not knowing there was another silent pandemic that was growing, which is SGBV.
Yeah.
So we actually mitigating COVID-19 and we forgot. People lost their jobs. Schools were closed. So these couples who have not been together in the same house ended up being together. What happens? What happened is now I have not been with the man of the house in the house full time. We are now clashing. The space has become too small for us. So yes, a lot has happened. We got a lot of SGBV happening. In fact, between March and December, the number quadrupled.
up.
Yes, as opposed to what we had before. I think we were dealing, by the end of the year, we were dealing with over 4,000 cases, reported cases of SGBV, either in the home setting, in any other environment. But now, and then these cases were not addressed adequately because we had a lockdown, courts were closed. Medical facilities had prioritized COVID as opposed to dealing with these cases. So the parties remained in the same toxic environment. Remember, in court, you'd have gotten two remedies: protection orders under the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act, and then the criminal aspect now would have set in for the perpetrator to face justice, to face the full force of the law.
Yeah, what does that protection order mean? Because I know for domestic violence, a lot of the things we see on the ground is you go report your case to the police station and you're told deal hiyo ni yako na mzee, wacha kuileta. And of course there are those cases of umekuja mara mingi, tafuta njia ingine ya kuitengeneza. Or culture checks in and you're told wazee wanaongea, wakishamaliza watakuambia kitu ya kufanya.
Hiyo mambo ya wazee kuongea, I think it's just about the community, but you should always ask, what about the victim?
Yes.
The victim is the one feeling the pain, but the Protection Against Domestic Violence is an act that came into effect in 2015. Most of the remedies in that act are civil in nature. A protection order is an order that you ask and you go to court and seek intervention, whereby one of the parties could be removed from that environment and you leave the other family members. So there are remedies under the law where it allows one party to be removed from the home environment, and especially the perpetrator, and you leave the survivor within that environment.
So the law enforces this perpetrator to leave?
Yes, if there are circumstances that you can prove that this person has been violent or they're abusive, whatever nature, victims of rape or victims of emotional abuse, you can remove this person from that environment and leave the family to continue being happy.
But that again takes us back to the environment. So this perpetrator is my sole, he's a sole breadwinner. He's the one who's paying the mortgage or paying the rent. He's the one who is providing food. And now I want him to get out. So you see how women still go back and say, Nisawa too, we'll sort it at home.
Like I have said, there are civil and criminal remedies. When it comes to the protection order, it will also deal, of course, read with other laws, it will deal with also the issues of maintenance, subsistence and school fees, when you read it together with other laws. So it's not just about throwing one party out. It's also about now taking care of the family.
Of the family.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So there's the civil society, and we were supposed to have Madam Kula in the show, and unfortunately she couldn't make it. But then what is their role in fighting this SGBV? Because you cannot work on your own. The ODP cannot, in as much as it is able to, but of course it needs to be collective responsibility. So how do you work with the civil society?
Like you have said, you cannot work in isolation. The criminal justice chain is long, and you need to you need to take everyone with you along the system. So we have what we call civil societies, government, which is ODPP, the courts, the police, the councillors, and everyone else. So how we work with the civil societies is such that we seek intervention for them in different areas. I have talked about issues of domestic violence.
Yes.
We need shelter for our victims.
Yes.
So it means, and noting that the government does not have any shelters, and especially for adults. So what we do is that we call them to support us in provision of justice to our victims. When we need psychosocial support, we call them. When we did legal reform, and being in government, you can't do it. You actually talk to them. And then again, when you need medical support and psychosocial support, counseling, name it, they will always come in for us. And of course, over and above, we know in court, we have what we call advocates or lawyers who watch brief. They will come in. And provision of legal aid, noting that we also have what we call a national legal aid service for the ones who deserve legal aid. Yes.
The issue of shelter is quite thorny. I mean, there's expectation from us, the public, that the government ought to build these shelters because this thing has become a pandemic, like you say. And I was listening to a discussion about SGBV, and someone said that the same vigor the government gave the fight against HIV, for example, it should give it to SGBV, and that means building shelters. Is it that the government has not provided the opportunity to build shelters? Or, I mean, I don't get why the government doesn't have shelters. I mean,
well, I think a lot of factors come into play. Of course, we have the government has not made it a deliberate move.
Yes.
Though I must appreciate about 3 months at the beginning of this year, we had NMS, the head of NMS,
Yes.
General, actually making a commitment to provide shelter. But I believe what we need to see from our government, and of course us being government, is that we need to hear from the agencies that are tasked with this, having a deliberate effort to build shelters, because at the end of the day, these issues should be dealt with by the government and not any other agencies. The civil societies in this country, the faith-based organizations, just complement what the government provides.
Are these shelters free from the civil society side?
I can say yes and no. Remember, shelters, the shelters are also supported, not by the government, but by donors.
Yes.
So the reason why I say yes, they are free, is that when we call upon them, they don't charge the victim or the survivor. But there are others who have not had donor funding. They will tell us to support them in kind. When I talk of in kind, is when we have victims, a very vulnerable victim, they would request that we get them security in the form maybe of the kind of security we have in our office, or they are willing to support our victims, but we need to chip in towards the food and and medical support, which now in turn we go to another institution that could also support.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's one of the conversations that we must continue having, especially because the pandemic, it is a silent pandemic, and a lot of people are suffering and they don't know where to go, you know. And so, Madam, the Sexual Offences Act, since its enactment, what are the milestones?
It's 14 or 15 years since the enactment of the Sexual Offences Act. Of course, if you look at, there was a struggle before then, which brought into place the sexual offences. Quite a number of things have happened. You remember before the enactment of the Sexual Offences Act, we did not have child-friendly spaces or courts where cases of the children would have been heard. Well, that is a milestone if you look at it. And over the years, that space has grown, the children's court and children's spaces. Secondly, a lot of sensitivity has come in. If you look at before that act was enacted, anyone, any judicial officer could hear the matter in open. So what happened is that with the training and sensitization on the act, we also have very sensitive judicial officers. Thirdly, remember, initially would hear cases of children and victims of sexual gender-based violence would be heard, and no one would have known person A has been convicted of a sexual offense, and hence we should always be watching him. We now have what we call sexual offenders register.
Yes.
A sexual offenders register where actually it's housed in the judiciary, where they should always record the outcome of an SOA case or a sexual offense case. As to whether it's been whether it's up to date, that I wouldn't be able to tell. But that is one thing that was brought about by the sexual
SOA. Yes. The question is the public, can you access that registry?
The register. At times, I would want to say yes, you should be able to access it, but you need to explain why you need to access it. I know for employers, they're allowed to access it.
Okay, I think my argument would be the domestic setting. I'm not a registered employer, but I will employ a house girl. And sometimes you do it on the go, you know. And sometimes, and most times, these cases of sexual abuse, I think there was a story some time back about how it starts within the house, and sometimes from the house, the house, I don't want to call them house help, the caregiver you've employed for your children. So how do I, as a mother, access such details before I employ someone?
Thank you, Anita. I think you need to know it's not just any name that is thrown in the register. It's people who've gone through the criminal process.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't get someone defiling and it's not reported and they end up in the register. So it's a case that has gone through
The whole process.
The whole process, and there's a conviction.
Okay.
Yes.
And there's a conviction.
Yes.
That's important, because I'd imagine someone listening and saying, we want that register.
Tunataka kuweka kila mtu hapo.
Tunataka kuona kwanza. Ama before you're employed, someone says, you say they ask for a certificate of good conduct.
Yes.
Unaambiwa leta conduct yako ya tuone kama uko kwa ile nini. Yeah, SOA tuone kama uko ndani. It would be nice, by the way, because children are really, really suffering.
Yes.
So are we saying that the policy frameworks on SGBV are sufficient, or is there room for improvement?
Of course, there's always room for improvement. We know the change is always slow and painful,
Yes.
but I believe we'll get there. There's what we have for now, I can say, as it stands, still works. And I can't say it's successful, but like I've said, pain is always slow, but change is slow but painful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to ask, because again, from the public perspective, there was this case in Eldoret. Was it Ivy Wangeshi? There was a video going on around the mother. She was really bitter about how this case has. Is it, first of all, does it fall under SGBV?
Yes,
it
that
does.
was gender-based
Violence, yes.
Yes.
So the mother was very bitter because she says the delays in court are, justice is delayed because of the delays, of course, occasioned by the defense. How do you help in such cases? What happens? Or you just let the law take its course?
Quite a number of issues control the court process.
Yes.
Of course, we can say a lot of, between March and now, a lot has been happening. Remember, we've been having this pandemic that we've had to fight. That's caused a delay. Remember, when it comes to evidence taking and evidence, leading a victim through the court process, there's some things that you can't do virtually.
Yeah.
They need to be present physically. So what I must say that we've been encouraging our judicial officers to hasten, the judicial process when it comes to SOA.
Yeah.
Yes, I know our victims out there feel like really
Actually,
even 1 month
yes,
is a delay to them. But again, there are also processes that must be in place before the hearing
of the case.
case.
So I think for her, everything is set, the witnesses are there, but the delays occasioned by the defense makes her feel, and she actually made her cry for the victim. She said, we protect the accused so well, but the victim gets no protection. Yes. Even the victim's family, because in this case she's deceased, but the victim's family they keep mourning every time a case is called and it doesn't happen. They go into a mourning period afresh. Yes, they're so traumatized. Yeah. So I'm going to go into, because you already had this discussion. You can get so repetitive about it, but then straight into the discussion, and some questions are repetitive. Luke was our star student last time, if you remember. He's asked again, and we responded to this. Is circumcision an SGBV?
Circumcision for girls is.
FGM is.
Yes, FGM or FCC. There are some who call it female genital cutting. There are those who call. It's been given all sorts of names. Yes, it is an offense. But for boys, there's an explanation that goes around that it's for medical reasons.
Yes. Yeah. And mostly for girls, it's forced.
Yes, it is forced.
Yes. So, and then also circumcision is an SGBV if it is forced.
Yes.
That was discussed last time. Luke, thanks, Luke, for your question. There is Michael Mburu. Thanks, Michael. He says, the traditional marriage in many tend to give the man more power over the woman. Once one has paid the bride price, that aspect comes in. How does the law address this? Nowadays, the street name is you're a goat wife, meaning mbuzi zililipwa. Yes. You're a goat wife, so you have to do whatever is said. Does the law recognize me being a goat wife and saying now, endelea tu kuchapwa?
The law recognizes traditional marriage.
Yes.
But the law also recognizes equality in marriage.
Yes.
So it's not about, it doesn't mean that since I paid, my brother or my father paid bride price, that he becomes a superior being in that relationship.
Yeah.
So the law recognizes equality in marriage. Yeah, it doesn't put one party above the other. And of course, even the Bible says two become one.
Hey, Madam Jacqueline, we can talk about religion and culture and you'll just find it patriarchal. Yes, the Bible says to become one, but then you'll find yourself in a space of umewekwa chini.
Umewekwa chini.
Eh,
Unyenyekee.
yes, and that is one of those things we just fight against in this society. So Edwin Jr. doesn't have a question. I'll just read it out, Edwin, but no, someone will reach out to you. Hi, ODPP Kenya. You promised to follow up my case. My case is 1 year old and the suspect's number still active. Karuri DCIO not able to nab him. So anyway, Edwin, somebody else is going to help you address that query you have. Thanks, Kipngeno. He says you're having a great discussion and thanks for following. So the other question I may have is, can you prosecute on video evidence only? You've seen how people nowadays, you get into a situation with a person, na kumbe una record, and then you go splash it on social, you know?
Okay.
Can you use that evidence? There was a guy, I think his video was circulating on social. They had a moment with the wife and they were really arguing and exchanging really bad words, you know, and the children were there. So if one of them wanted to sue, can they use that video as evidence?
Yes, I can say video evidence or digital evidence is admissible in court, but of course it has...
Your butt.
But
Yes.
I must say,
Yeah.
under Evidence Act, it is admissible in court,
Yeah.
but there are some requirements that you must fulfill before it's admissible. Of course, we know different people will pick the information differently.
Yeah.
So the law also provides which how you should package that evidence. Yes, I'll answer that question in two. The first one I've said yes, but
Yes.
Secondly, we have a legal notice, I think 25 of 2015 on witness protection.
Yes.
You can also take evidence of a victim and present it in court.
Yes.
There are also rules that govern how it should be presented in court.
Yes.
So yes, you can use video evidence,
but within some
within some confines of the law.
Okay. Look again, this guy is we need to give him an award. So he asked a question we've responded to last week, and again it comes up. Why is SGBV mostly, why does it affect women? Why is the woman the poster person for SGBV?
I will say the reason why we see the face of the woman in SGBV issues is because women have spoken out a lot.
Yeah.
Remember, in the African society, much as we are told a woman should nyenyekea na nyamaze na mambo yake, they've also been taught how to speak out about the ills of SGBV. While if a man speaks out in the society, they are termed to be coward. Weak, coward, and you know.
Yes.
And I think you have also seen stories of men from my community who have decided now to speak out in Inua Baba. You know, we have...
Oh, yeah.
You saw that. So even as they speak out, the society is judging them. But for a woman, they're allowed to speak out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the woman is, and then the society is patriarchal.
Yes.
There is this religion that puts the woman down.
Yes.
There's culture. So there's a lot of reasons why. Oh my, Luke has questions. It's bestiality and SGBV. That is a sexual offense, not...
Bestiality is a sexual offense.
Yes.
And I don't know whether to classify it as such, an SGBV issue, because you know what happens in bestiality.
Yes, yes.
Let me say it's not it's not a GBV issue because it's a man
and an animal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not classified as a gender-based violence because animals, you know,
you can't. So the other question I have maybe is, are there plans to introduce this SGBV as a unit in school? Like, can it be added to the curriculum? Because, you know, we've discussed this. You want to introduce your child early to understand an environment that fosters SGBV or an environment that fosters abuse. Is it not important for us to have this in the curricula?
Yes, it is very important to have it in a curriculum, so that from an early age, a child, boy or girl, knows what the boundaries within which they should operate and how they should operate, how they should relate to different people. So yes, it's good, and I think I've had the talk on the Ministry of Education in bringing it in to the curriculum from a very tender age. So yes, it's good, but I should mention it is we are also, as ODPP, going to have heard that it's going to be part of our curriculum, so that remember, violence is not exclusive to a certain group. Even within our workplace, we
Yes.
have those that violate
Yes,
from
yes.
home.
Yeah.
So that we know right from the beginning that these are the boundaries that you cannot cross.
Yeah. Interesting. We really spoke about this thing last week. I'm even wondering where to continue from. So, are police trained in handling SGBV cases? Is it driven by them or is it driven by you? Or is it the civil society?
For a very long time, I must say, I know the human rights issue has been in the police curriculum.
Yes.
From way back in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's taught currently, I wouldn't know, but I know quite a number of people can drive the training. One, passion by the person going
Yes.
into training on GBV issues. Secondly, the curriculum through when you're being trained, on-job training.
Yes.
And then we can also have training driven by different drivers, the civil society, the government, your employer. So it can be driven by many people, including yourself. Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow. Child marriages. I mean, we have all these laws, but still every day in the news you must hear of an SGBV case involving a child. What can we do as society? What can we do? Because looks like it is not just for the ODP to make this, to bring this thing down. It starts from the family setting. So what can we do as society? Do we need billboards to tell us SGBV is
Child marriages?
Yeah, do we need
SGBV
that?
issue.
Yeah.
What can be done? I think we need to use different approaches. One is what I have said: start early in a school setting.
Yeah.
Secondly, is even as you start early, continue reminding the girl child that their priorities in life.
Yeah.
Marriage is not a priority, so that they know and scream about it.
Did you say marriage is not a priority?
At that age,
Yeah.
at any age before 18,
Yes.
you need to go to school. So you need to speak about it right from the beginning, scream about it every day. The challenge is with our society is that one moment we are hyping sexual offenses, then we go to other issues that are priority to the society, priority at that time. So we need to continue as not just as ODPP, but with all the players that are in that criminal justice space to talk about different issues, even the child marriages, so that as our children grow, as our parents, keep hearing this, it's always somewhere at the back of their mind that you cannot go to that place where you need to marry off your child before they attain the age of majority, which is 18 years.
Yes. Okay, this is very interesting, and maybe there's so many societies coming up, NGOs that are dealing with SGBV, and it is my hope that there's a way they can work with you directly, because sometimes you see cases on social and they are just trying to get help. Whoever listens, whoever reads, please just help me. Somebody has been abused and I can't help them. So is there a way you actually communicate with these civil societies? Do you have forums?
Yes, we do have forums, and I think I need to mention this. We have what we call the State Department of Gender, which has which has formed a group where we meet monthly and at times bi-weekly, or to discuss different issues that are plaguing the members of the society, SGBV issues. So yes, we meet, and in that group, what we have done is that we have a referral mechanism. Before I go to court, I need to refer my victim to a shelter. I need to refer a victim to, at that point they are survivors, I need to refer them to a psychosocial, a counselor, I need to refer them for a mental issue, for, assessment, or generally counseling and debriefing before we now embark on the court process. So yes, there is a group. And just to add, we also have a list of shelters where, which I should be circulating to the office, where we can seek assistance of our victims or survivors.
All right.
Yes.
Our discussion has come to an end, madam. It was quite quick, I think,
Yes.
because we had expected to have a very elaborate discussion with the civil society. But again, this doesn't end. We will still invite you to come and we discuss this more, because I think we need to see the interplay between civil society and you can't claim to speak for them.
Oh, yes.
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 So definitely we'll have to continue this discussion, but I think it's very clear that it is not just an ODPP function to stop SGBV. It is our function as a society to help bring it down, and of course recognize the environment in which this thing thrives. And of course the pandemic has made it quite an interesting scenario for us. Thank you very much for joining us today. The discussion is ongoing. Like we said, today was about really seeing the interplay between government and civil society, and we missed the chance because of an unavoidable circumstance. We are going to pick it up again and continue this discussion. Of course, it is our platform and we'll bring it back again to you. Keep engaging on social. There are people waiting to respond to your questions. Again, our star student for today has been Luke, and we really appreciate your engagement and the questions. If you go back to the video even for last week, a lot of the questions you're asking were answered last week, but then you can still respond to your questions this week. I want to thank you and I want to wish you a nice weekend. Please engage with us on social and keep safe. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.